Welcome to the Uptime Wind Energy Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Hall, along with my co-host, Joel Saxum. Today, we're tackling a critical issue in the wind industry, accessing wind turbine blades for repairs. And our guest is Petr Bartusek, Commercial VP of Blade Platforms. And Blade Platforms is a truck-mounted platform company based in Abilene, Texas. And with wind turbines hubs reaching new heights, traditional repair access methods can be slow and inefficient. Blade Platform solves this problem with a fleet of machines that can safely reach over 100 meters, allowing technicians to quickly and efficiently repair blades while minimizing turbine downtime. Today, Petr will share how Blade Platforms is transforming blade repair access and discuss the future of this innovative company in the wind industry. Petr, welcome to the show.
All right, thanks for having me.
So Joel and I happened to visit your facility in Abilene. And the reason we did was because of speed. It comes down to quickness. In our strike click take application, where we're touching a lot of blades, we have to get up and down very quickly because we touch so many blades simultaneously, which is a common industry problem. If you're going to fix one blade, pretty easy. You can use whatever method. But when we're at some farms that have 100, 200, 300 plus turbines, it becomes so slow, inefficient, that there has to be a new way to do it, a faster way to get on blade and to make repairs. And this is where we stopped in Abilene and met with your folks down there at Blade Platforms. It is impressive, the speed at which you guys move, and it has really changed the industry. And Joel and I have been around a lot of parts of Texas and Oklahoma, and we see Blade Platforms. And now we understand why, because you're really changing the industry.
You know, I'll kind of add, it's not just speed. I think there's a couple of things. You get speed, you get skill, and you get time utilization, right? So the speed kind of speaks for itself, right? I tell everyone on a 12-hour day, we'll do 11 hours worth of work, right? So you get some truck setup time and, some idle time that just, you cannot monetize. But that's one aspect. The other thing is utilization of time. And that, these sites are, on windy projects, right? So you don't put turbines where the wind doesn't blow. So you have to be able to operate in increments of time. When that happens, and using traditional means of access, or ropes or suspended platforms, it's the rigging time and everything else that goes into it kind of changes the dynamics of what you're doing. Because, let's say you get a rig for 2 hours, then you go up, then you get a 3-hour weather window. Then you got to go down, and maybe or maybe not, you have to call it a day. If at 2 o'clock a storm roll in or something will happen. So for us, we get, 6 hours worth of work. There's 3-hour storm going through. All of a sudden we can take a, 3-hour lunch to kill that storm, weather a storm, and then we go work again. So that's what I would call the time utilization. Third aspect, which is skill or training, right? And the way I look at it is the older you get as a skilled technician, the less likely you are to want to hang on the ropes. So let's say you're 20-year-old, this is fun. You're 40, you may have some midsection weight, you may have some bum knees, you've acquired a lot of knowledge, and you basically could become a liability rather than an asset to a traditional access company. Whereas with us, if your knee's a little bum, it doesn't matter. If you used to be 175 and now you're 275, it's not that big of a deal because the basket can handle 1,300 pounds. So we can then effectively monetize or help our customers monetize the skill that particular technician has already built up over, let's say, 10, 15, 20 years. So I think that those are the three advantages that I kind of see. It's the time utilization, and the skill utilization that comes with it. And I'm not even talking about the safety aspects of, being up there where, there's 4 redundant systems, or how you can get down and, you don't have to worry about anything.
And I can speak to that too, Petr. So I know that you guys have some aid in-house that can help someone with a bit of a blade issue if they need it. But if a company has technicians that they need to put up there, this is not, you don't have to come to site and do a 3-day training mechanism or something. When the Blade Platforms truck shows up, there's a technician with it. There's someone who can operate it. Like I was there, like I say, I'll speak to this, right? We came to the Abilene facility. saw the fantastic facility right when you pull in, all the trucks everywhere being worked on, the army of people maintaining these things and making sure they're ready to go at a minute's notice. I did an orientation with one of your techs on site who was fantastic. The guys rigged me up for a harness and showed me where to hook off and all these things. And within 5 minutes, I was up 200 and some odd feet in the air. Just a little scared, I'm going to be honest with you. I think I was the one who actually said, okay, that's high enough. We're good here. A beautiful view of Abilene, Texas, right, from the sky. But what I'm saying, or what I'm getting at there, is like, if you have technicians or if you have people on the ground already, they don't need to go through a big training program to do this, right? I mean, it was literally 15 minutes of orientation, safety, rigging up a harness, which if you're in the wind industry, you already probably have your own, or you know how to do it anyways. And then going up and you're ready to work, right? It was like, now we're ready to go.
Yeah, that's exactly it. As long as you have your basic windsurts, which is your, safety, GW now, which, is becoming the prevalent requirement. It's more of an orientation for you. Hey, here is where you're going to step. Here is where you're going to clip your lanyard, and then you're good to go. And then other than that, you've been trained for everything. So you're right. Our unit will roll up to site for whoever needs to use it, what I would call self-contained. That means there is an operator in the basket. They'll do all the work. And we also have a ground control technician. So that's somebody who manages the ground, make sure nobody gets underneath because there is a drop zone. If something were to happen, this person can also serve as a secondary rescue. So if you've never seen these units as a future potential customer, it's out of sight, out of mind almost. We roll in, we set up everything, and we take your super skilled technician or inspector or whoever that needs to be and take them up, and then they got to do whatever they got to do. We do have limited capabilities, so helping mostly our OEM customers in-house, but our bread and butter is truly truck rental and access and truck sales.
So, I mean, the majority of platforms, I'm saying platforms as in turbines, right? The majority of the turbines out in the fleet in the United States right now or I'd say North America in general, are under 100-meter hub height. A lot of them 80 meters, 90 meters for the majority of the fleet. It's pretty odd that you get turbines over 100 meters. So what that means is I know that you guys have trucks at all different levels. Like you have 30-meter access all the way to like 100-meter access, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we go 30, 50, 70, 75, 90, and then 103.
That's flipping a football field on its nose and going from the end of the end zone to the end of the other end zone. Not just the end lines, but the whole thing. That's huge. I mean, you're 330 feet, and you're 340?
336 is almost 340. These trucks are actually the highest reaching trucks that exist in North America, South America, probably in Europe.
So with all these different heights, right? So if you wanted to go just work on the tip of a turbine blade, great. If you want to go up the side of the tower and look underneath the nacelle, great. If you want to go and work the whole blade length of the tower, we can do that as well. But all of these different heights also have different kind of wind restrictions to go with it, right? Because you're not going to be up at 100 meters with a 20 meter per second wind. Like that's just not going to happen, right? But what do the wind restrictions look like for you guys? Because I'm just looking at weather windows.
Yeah, for us, traditionally, especially on a newer fleet, we have what's called an extended wind regime. So the truck is 12.5 meters a second, 16 meters a second, and 19 meters a second that you actually can go and operate. It may have a restricted envelope, so you may not able to hit the full reach. So let's say on a 90-meter truck, you got only hit 80 meters at 19 meters a second, and you may not hit the full outreach, which is up to 130 feet, and you may be limited to 100 feet on an outreach. But, during those dicey conditions, nobody will not do anything crazy. And most wind farms will cut you off at 12.5 meters a second anyway, because it's just kind of considered the safe practice. I think for us, where it kind of comes in is that, hey, I know the truck can handle a lot higher wind gust, so everybody's safe. And then it allows you to finish a job in an emergency situation. So that's kind of the use we're looking at for the extended working envelope based on extended wind regime.
Yeah, because I mean, in a general rule of thumb, there isn't many turbines out there that you would even lock out after 15 meters per second. Most of them, you just feather the blades negative and and kind of let it sit up there. Like you're not going to be able to work on them no matter what the access method is. That's wind speed.
Yeah, that's right. And operators want to make money too, right? So if we can generate, they want to. At the end of the day, that's their business, right? So we get it, and again, that's why I know we have the capability and capacity. We don't really, dangle the carrot much in front of people because we're gonna work to a point where it's safe and where we're adding value. So if, let's say you're working just on the tip, and you start getting 30 meters a second, we could probably still be there, but the tip may be flapping to where it's just not safe for the basket, or you can be up in the air, but you're creating zero value because you can't actually do the work. So, it depends on where you're working on that blade. If I'm somewhere, mid-span or max chord, there's a lot less movement on that blade, so it could still be possible to finish the job, but at a tip, it just poses a whole other dimension.
Okay, so we've talked about 30 all the way to 100 meter reach height. How many trucks do you guys have? What does the fleet look like?
Pushing close to 40. It's 35 plus. There is a pipeline of about 10 trucks being delivered each year as we have it. We're currently still evaluating the mix. I know this is more of a wind show, but we've kind of made a huge leap into the transmission space, which is an adjacent market for us. So that changed our mix a little bit. And we operate in other spaces too, like aerospace, construction, building big stadiums and, high-speed bridges and whatever else just needs some special equipment like this. But our bread and butter is traditionally going to be wind power and transmission, right? So with you talking about the average hub height being 80, 90 meters, your workhorse truly ends up being a 90-meter machine, which is a 295 footer. So that means that no matter what happens, you're kind of going to roll on the side. You can hit it, and you don't have to worry about it because it's an overall workhorse. Now, if you're only structuring a campaign that's geared maybe towards strike tape and leading edge protection, then the 50 or 70 meter variety will likely do. And there's obviously money savings because it's a cheaper machine to start with, but it's going to be limited to that particular campaign that you're doing.
And what are the restrictions about moving such a large vehicle around in the United States? Are there permits and things that need to be pulled before bringing it some parts?
The problem with the DOT generally is that each state has individual DOTs. There is not like a federal DOT that would make everything super easy. So each state may have different requirements on weight, axle spacing, and how much weight you can have on each axle. But basically, 30, 50, 70 meter variety, you can drive around the US without any issues at all. That includes California, which is not a super friendly state to large equipment. The 90 meters, virtually drivable everywhere except a couple states where they may need to get lowboyed. And, it's a permit situation of 1 to 3 days wait, depending on what each state requires. And the 100 meters, they're about 50-50. I would say about half of the states are road friendly and half of the states are not. So sometimes you end up having to piecemeal, like, hey, we're going to drive here, then you're going to put it on a lowboy. We fortunately own a lowboy in-house, so that makes moves a lot easier on us. And then, again, you get to unload it and you can drive. So it has to do with the overall weight of the vehicle for axle spacing, right?
I mean, when it comes to access within a wind farm, at one point in time, all of these wind farms were built with heavy trucks having to move usually big crawler cranes in. So the roads and pads are good for you guys. The bridge crossings, the roads around the wind farms. So like once you get to the site, there should be no issues no matter what the place is, unless it's like, hey, you can't, put an outrigger out here because the sage grouse is mating this spring or something like that. You might run into a deal, but there's nothing we can do about those.
No, generally there are no issues at all, especially if the turbine operator or the construction company was a good steward to the county. If they were not, sometimes we walk into a hornet's nest that, they just kind of close eyes and say, hey, we know it's not you guys that build it, or, it's not an angry landowner that didn't want to sign, and now he doesn't have a turbine on his field, and his neighbor has 5 turbines, and all of a sudden this guy has a brand new truck every year, and the neighbor doesn't. So, there is that type of dynamic we walk into. There is some specific seasonal issues, like where there's a little quail mating or some salamanders somewhere in California, or you're gonna have frost laws up north, right? That kick in, or if you had heavy rain somewhere in the Iowa cornfields, or even in the Corpus area, then the ground is too soft, so you may wait 2 or 3 days for it to dry. But yeah, no, we don't have access issues. I think there's one site somewhere in New Hampshire that we had to get a little bit of a tow with a tractor just because the grade was relatively steep. But if a truck can get there, if a car can get there, we usually don't have issues. And our truck are, all-wheel drive and rear steering, so we can navigate sites pretty well.
I think I've been to that site in New Hampshire. It is very steep, so that makes a lot of sense. So do you cover Canada as well as the United States? What's your territory here?
We specialize in the U.S. We have the ability to go to Canada. I don't necessarily pursue it actively. Passively, we do it. But there is just so much work in the U.S. for our trucks that to actually focus on Canada, it's borderline counterproductive. Nothing against Canadians. I like hockey and everything else. But the service window is so much shorter up there, right, than it is stateside, because of the climate, and certain provinces have certain restrictions, French Canada being one of the harshest ones, that it poses a whole new aspect in terms of, how you bill, how you kind of work around labor laws, what you can, what you cannot do. So it again, customer orders it, we'll bring it there or bring it to the border, and they can take it and we'll deliver it. I say yes, but I don't seek it out.
That's a market that could greatly benefit from the efficiency of the trucks, right? But if it's not good, if it's not as good for your business model, like, I get it, like, just stay down here and make money where they hate.
What they could benefit is something we discovered by accident about 2 years ago. Actually, we were the beneficiary. Some of our customers discovered it, and they're saying, hey, the machine doesn't get tired. Why don't we run 2 shifts? So, that's something that probably should be utilized in Canada. And that is, there is so much work that you truly cannot get everything done in a season. And especially if the shoulders of the season, the weather's a little dicey. So you're trying to compress everything into virtually, say, May through September in an ideal case. And if everybody had their wish, it would be like June through August, right? So at that point, how do you handle the limited capacity of trucks or technicians that want R&Rs and everything else that is happening? So we've been with a couple of our customers, we've been running a 24-hour shift. That means I actually have 2 sets of operators, and they have 2 sets of blade techs, and we run around the clock. And that truly is during what I would call the peak season.
Yeah, take advantage of the good weather windows, right? Like, we know that as soon, like, if you're working on site, even in the U.S., once September hits and October starts looking, if you're working anywhere north of basically South Texas, you have the possibility of snow or some other bad weather moving in. Why not? I mean, you can get 2 weeks worth of, or 4 weeks worth of work done in 2 weeks if you run night shifts. I mean, that's just kind of makes sense.
And with less of a standby risk, right? So your actual 2 weeks could mean 6 weeks in real life, right? Because if you factor some sort of a standby. So yeah, it's not everyone's receptive to it. Again, I did not invent it. I'm sure this is being used across the petrochemical industry, all the time during shutdown and turnaround. But, some of our customers kind of came to us and say, hey, this is what we want to do. And, I always figure out how to say yes. So that is my job virtually. and then operation guys have to figure out how they going to deliver on that.
That does seem like a really good idea. And I know there's a lot of operators that have used blade platforms, but there's still a substantial number that haven't used your services yet. How do they reach out to you, Peter? How do they get a hold of blade platforms?
So the easiest way is the 21st century. That's www.bladeplatforms.com. That probably will guide you to our 1-800 number, or eventually get you to someone who you talk to and they can get to me. I don't mind sharing my number. That's 469-371-4284 if someone needs to get me direct.
If you need Blade Platform services, go to bladeplatforms.com. Check out their website, get a hold of Peter. They are really efficient and are experts on blade upgrades and blade repairs. So Peter, it's been great having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.